The man in seat 8A looked invisible long before the plane ever left the ground, not because he tried to hide, but because the world had already decided he was easy to overlook. As passengers rushed past him with rolling bags and distracted eyes, no one noticed the quiet weight he carried in his posture, the stiffness in his shoulders, or the way his fingers trembled slightly as he buckled his seatbelt. If anyone had looked closely, they might have seen a story etched into his tired face, but no one did. And for a while, that seemed exactly how life had trained him to exist. Before this story pulls you deeper, take a moment to support the channel. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that remind us humanity still matters, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe. It truly helps these stories reach hearts that are still listening. The flight was supposed to be ordinary. A mid-sized aircraft, a routine route, a sky painted with soft morning clouds. People settled into their seats, already lost in headphones, screens, and small irritations. The man in seat 8A sat quietly near the aisle, wearing a faded jacket that had seen too many winters and not enough rest. He wasn't old, but life had aged him early. His hair was thinning at the temples, his eyes carried a distant heaviness, and his hands bore scars that spoke of work done not behind desks, but with grit and consequence. He had learned long ago that attention was something other people received, not him. He hadn't always been this way. Once, he'd been a man with confidence, purpose, and a name people remembered. Years earlier, he had worked a job that demanded responsibility under pressure, where mistakes could cost lives. He'd been trained to act when others froze, to stay calm when chaos took over. But life doesn't always reward dedication. A single moment, a single decision, a single failure not entirely his own, had unraveled everything. He lost his job. He lost the respect of colleagues. He lost the rhythm of a life that once made sense. And slowly, quietly, he lost himself. By the time he boarded this plane, he had learned to expect nothing from anyone. He kept his eyes down, avoided unnecessary movement, and accepted the silent judgments that come when someone doesn't look important enough to matter. A business traveler beside him barely acknowledged his presence. A flight attendant passed him with a professional smile that never quite reached her eyes. To them, he was just another seat filled, another number on a manifest. As the plane taxied down the runway and lifted into the air, the man in seat 8A closed his eyes, feeling the familiar pressure change in his ears. Flying always unsettled him, not because of fear, but because it reminded him how little control humans truly have. Up here, everyone trusted machines, systems, and strangers they would never meet again. He rested his head back and breathed slowly, grounding himself the way he had learned long ago. The flight moved smoothly at first. The cabin lights dimmed slightly. Drinks were served. Conversations faded into a low, forgettable hum. The man remained quiet, his thoughts drifting through memories he usually tried to avoid. Regrets, missed chances, people he had let down. He wondered, not for the first time, whether the world would notice if he simply disappeared. Somewhere above the clouds, something went wrong. It began subtly, with a vibration that felt different from normal turbulence. The engine's sound shifted just enough to raise unease, even among passengers who couldn't explain why their stomachs tightened. The seatbelt sign flickered on. A flight attendant paused mid-step, her practiced calm slipping for just a fraction of a second. The plane jolted, harder this time, sending a ripple of gasps through the cabin. The man in seat 8A opened his eyes instantly. His body reacted before his mind caught up, muscles tightening, senses sharpening. He recognized this feeling, not panic, but alertness, the kind that arrives when something isn't right and time suddenly matters. Another jolt followed, more violent. Overhead bins rattled, a child began to cry. Whispers turned into anxious murmurs. The captain's voice came over the intercom, calm but strained, offering reassurance without explanation. Experienced travelers sensed it immediately. This wasn't routine turbulence. As the plane dipped and corrected itself, fear spread like electricity. Some passengers clutched armrests, others fumbled for phones, instinctively trying to reach loved ones. The cabin crew moved quickly now, their training evident, but their eyes betrayed concern. One flight attendant stumbled slightly as the plane shook again, steadying herself against a seat. The man in seat 8 noticed details others missed. The angle of the tilt, the timing between vibrations, the way the engine noise faltered and returned. His mind assembled pieces he hadn't used in years. Somewhere deep inside, the part of him that had once thrived under pressure woke up. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed through the cabin, followed by an abrupt drop that stole breath from every chest on board. Screams erupted. Oxygen masks didn't deploy, but the fear was real and raw. The plane stabilized again, but the silence afterward was heavier than the noise had been. In that moment, something changed. The man in seat 8A realized this was no longer a situation for passive hope. He saw the flight attendants exchange quick, worried looks. He noticed one of them struggling to communicate over a handset that wasn't responding properly. He recognized the signs of a cascading problem, the kind where small failures stack until they become deadly. Without standing or shouting, without drawing attention to himself, he raised his hand calmly and caught the eye of a nearby crew member. His face was steady, his expression serious but controlled. When she approached, expecting perhaps a complaint or a fearful question, she instead saw something unexpected in his eyes: certainty. He explained briefly and clearly what he believed was happening based on the signs he observed. He didn't exaggerate or dramatize. He spoke like someone who understood systems, pressure, and risk. At first, she hesitated. After all, he was just a passenger, just a man no one had noticed. But something about his composure, about the way he spoke without panic, made her listen. She relayed the information to the cockpit. Minutes passed that felt like hours. The plane continued to experience intermittent jolts, but now there was a sense of movement behind the scenes. Adjustments were made, announcements came more frequently. The crew worked with renewed focus, and quietly, without applause or recognition, the input from the man in seat 8A helped narrow the problem faster than it might have been otherwise. As the situation intensified, another issue emerged. A passenger near the back collapsed, overwhelmed by fear, and a sudden medical emergency triggered by stress. Panic threatened to spiral. The crew rushed to assist, but turbulence made movement difficult. Once again, the man in seat 8A acted without hesitation. He moved carefully, using seatbacks for balance, reaching the passenger and helping stabilize them using calm, methodical actions he hadn't practiced in years but never truly forgot. Other passengers watched in stunned silence. The same man they had ignored, stepped around, or dismissed was now the calm center in a storm. His presence alone seemed to steady the air around him. Fear softened into cautious hope. Eventually, after what felt like an eternity, the captain announced that the plane would be making an emergency landing. The problem was under control enough to attempt descent safely. The cabin erupted in nervous relief, mixed with lingering fear. Hands were held, eyes closed, silent prayers whispered. During the descent, the man returned to his seat, exhausted but composed. No one ignored him now. Strangers glanced at him with quiet gratitude. A flight attendant gave him a nod filled with respect. He didn't seek acknowledgement. He didn't need it. For the first time in a long while, he felt useful again. Not redeemed in the eyes of the world, but reconnected to himself. The plane landed hard but safely. Applause broke out, shaky and emotional. Some passengers cried openly, others laughed through tears. Emergency crews surrounded the aircraft as procedures unfolded. Amid the chaos, the man in seat 8A sat still, letting the adrenaline drain from his body. His hands trembled again, but this time not from fear, from release. As passengers disembarked, many paused near him, a touch on the shoulder, a look of thanks, a silent acknowledgement that what he had done mattered. He accepted it quietly, not because he believed he deserved praise, but because he understood something profound in that moment. He had never lost his worth. The world had just stopped looking for it. Before we reach the end, if this story has begun to stir something inside you, please leave a comment right now. Just one word, one thought, or even a simple heart. Let others know they're not alone in feeling this. Outside the plane, under a sky that seemed impossibly calm after the terror above the clouds, the man took a deep breath. The air smelled different, sharper, cleaner, like a second chance. He didn't know what tomorrow held. He didn't suddenly have his old life back, but he carried something more important. Proof that even when the world ignores you, you still matter. That your skills, your experiences, your heart don't expire just because others stop seeing them. And if this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that heroes don't always look important or sit in first class, please like this video, share it, and subscribe. Your engagement keeps these stories alive. Sometimes all it takes is one person paying attention to change everything.